Jai Jagannath, Radhe Radhe. Thanks for participating to this meeting, this discussion. We would like to elaborate today on some basic information on the different history of religions, and a sort of comparative study, so that we can see the difference and the similarity between the Hinduism, we can say, and the other historical religions. Now, please interrupt me anytime you have any questions or observations, doubts, or whatever. Okay.
Sure.
So also some feedback, because if something is not clear, we miss some points. That is important to know, so that I can fill the gaps. Okay, so we start with Vedic religion. Okay, not many people actually know much about Vedic religion, but it is important to understand that the Vedic religion is based on a few very fundamental principles that I call the principles of Dharma and Vidya, that can be applied in various ways according to time, place, and persons, concerned persons. We call that Desha, Kala, Patra. Desha means place, Kala means time, and Patra means concerned persons. Okay. This is why we call these basic principles of Dharma and Vidya, we call them Sanatana Dharma, because these are natural principles of religion that are inscribed in the subconscious, in the superconscious of each human being. Doesn't matter to which, in which Desha, Kala, Patra, whatever, because these are the basic, fundamental principles that are eternal and universal. Okay, so this Sanatana Dharma. These principles are truthfulness, honesty, sincerity, compassion, harmony, and love, and cooperation, and everything within the universal community. Then we have cleanliness or purification, which means improving oneself, keeping oneself clean, not only physically but mentally also. And then the last of the four main principles of Dharma is self-control, discipline, making effort for doing the right thing. So these four principles are presented in a very famous passage of the Bhagavata Purana, when in the story when Maharaj Parikshit beats the Kali Purusha that had nothing to do with Mother Kali. The Kali Purusha is a personification of the Kali Yuga, of this age of humanity, the age of the planet Earth. So these four principles are described as the four legs of Dharma. And in Sanskrit they are called Satyam, Dayam, Socha, and Tapas. Okay. Now the Vedic, the basic Vidya is that God is omnipresent, omnipotent, transcendent, eternal, yet it is present in the material world as well. And we are parts of God. We are all parts of God. This is the basic point. And the basic point is that we are not the body. We are spirit souls, eternal spirit souls that form a part of what we call God. In the Vedic, in Sanskrit, God is called Param Brahman, the Supreme Brahman. Now, more specifically, again, the Bhagavata Purana explains that God is called Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. The actual verse is Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajnanam advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti shabdyate. The translation is those who actually know the truth, tattvavidas, Vadanti, explain, tat jnanam advayam, God as the non-divided consciousness, non-divided knowledge, which is called Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Brahman is compared to the light and the energy of the sun, the light of the sun that is everywhere. Paramatma is like the reflection of the sun that we can see in in every pool of water, in every water container, and above our own head, wherever we are. And Bhagavan is compared to the celestial body of the sun, which is actually a big star, from which all this is manifested. The image of the sun, reflection of the sun, and the light and sun and power of the sun. So this can be very simple and can be very complex. Simple because the basics are very simple. Complex because we can go on and talk about this forever. There is no limit. So the Shastras also, tend to present some summaries. And Bhagavad Gita, as we have seen, is the best. Summaries, 700 verses. The Bhagavata Purana is summarizing it in 4 shlokas, the Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam. Basically this Vidya. It's not sectarian, it's not political, it's not limited by any material consideration. So if we study the Vedic knowledge, we can go from the very simple Sanatana Dharma and basic Atma Vidya to the very complex categorization of all the types of avatars, for example, of all the Vedas, all the parts of God which are manifested in the material world, and so on and so on. Now, this knowledge has been around for a very long time. According to the Vedic tradition, according to Bhagavad Gita, for example, this knowledge has existed always. It's eternal. Because just as reality is eternal, and sometimes it manifested and sometimes become non-manifested, but then becomes manifested again. So in the same way, the knowledge of the reality is always existing. Okay, so we can safely conclude that the Vedic knowledge is, in its basic form, original form, the most ancient religion of human history. Now, contrarily to what the current biased academic propaganda says, there is not a linear progress in human culture. At least we have seen that at least 100 or 200 years ago, there were so many different levels of civilizations that coexisted on the same planet. Still today, we are on the level of the quantum physics and atomic space, blah blah, computer, artificial intelligence. And at the same time, we have people, for example, in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, they're called Sentinelese, who they still live in the Stone Age, as far as their culture and habits and civilization is concerned. And they want to stay there because, if anybody tries to go there, trying to change their way of life, they are entitled to kill these invaders. So they're not likely to change their way of life again, And there are probably still some, remote tribes in the Amazons, in the South America, Central and South America. So, and also there is evidence that in the very ancient past there have been civilizations that were much more advanced than people generally think. Like, for example, we can see in some archeological sites, for example, in Baalbek in Lebanon. Baalbek was a very ancient city that had a very ancient temple. And it was dedicated to Baal. Then later it was dedicated to the Greek religion, ancient Greek religion, and so on. But we see that the most ancient parts of the temple means the most, the earliest, that are the foundations of the temple, are much more advanced technically than the parts of the temple that have been built later on by the Greeks and by the Romans. If you go and see the photos, we can see that these foundations are made with stones that no one, even today, would be able to, carry and put there with that kind of precision in that particular place, which is on a hill, So, and the same thing, we have so many other relics, many other evidence from the past, some of which are so embarrassing for the mainstream official academic institutions that they are called out-of-place artifacts. Generally the official academic version is saying that human beings started to develop a little bit only 300,000 years ago. Yet there have been objects, technical objects like hammers or precise spheres, metal objects and everything, that have been found in geological strata, that are dated 300 million years ago. And so they cannot explain how, but that means that there is lot, there is a lot of things that the official history cannot explain. But let's go and see what the official history describes as prehistory. Now, in the prehistory, there is some very good, famous and academically recognized work by one James Fraser that is called the Golden Bough. No, it's not James. Let me see. Let me check. Verify. 1 sec. The Golden Bough is a very famous Golden Bough. It's a very famous James George Fraser. That is a very famous study in comparative religion. And mythology. They call it mythology. Abrahamic scholars, they call religion what they believe and mythology what other people believe, but it's okay. So, and it is very, very available, even on free PDF online. You can download it. I downloaded it for free. And it was published at first in 1890, so before the 20th century, at the end of the 19th century. Then there was it was followed by other famous books. But the Golden Bough is the most seminal work on this subject, especially connecting the very ancient European and Middle Eastern cultures and religions and ideologies. What we can see still today is a basic concept of God as the Father and the Mother, especially the Mother. Now, it is natural for each human being to see their own mother as God. During the gestation period and after birth and up to 1 or 2 years of age after birth, because the child completely depends on the mother. So mother is the source of food, protection, happiness, safety, attention, love, pleasure, mental peace. So whenever the child doesn't feel that the mother is favorable to him, the child goes into a panic. So this is the idea that human beings have about God. It's a source of food, nourishment, safety, protection, benefits. All that is good is coming from God. So God is the one from whom everything good comes. And this originally expanded the idea of the mother as God to the Mother Earth, Mother Nature, which is the most fundamental feeling that human beings used to have. So the alpha male of the tribe was the king, was considered the consort of the mother goddess. The mother goddess was God, and the consort was the alpha male of the tribe. Just like we see in many animal species, for example, the bull and the cow, the deer and the does, the alpha male and the females. All the females were seen as manifestations of the mother goddess, which is also present in the original Hinduism. The position of the mother goddess is very important, and it is clearly said in many shastra that all women are the representatives, the manifestations of the mother goddess. The earth is a manifestation of the mother goddess. The cow is a manifestation of the mother goddess, and so on. So basically, the early human tribes had a mother goddess that was the eldest of all the women in the tribe, eldest and the wisest, and they had more personal charisma, power, knowledge, whatever, And then there was the alpha male, the king, the consort, that was in charge of the protection of the whole tribe. All the women lived together with the mother of the tribe. So they were taking care of each other. They were taking care of the children in a communal way. Just like we see with many animals, like we see not only for the cows, but also in the deer, but also, for example, in the boars. The boar is the ancestor of the pigs, and the boar was also considered a sacred animal. The cow and the bull were considered sacred animal. The deer and especially the deer and the does were considered sacred animals, and the boar was considered sacred animals. This is why the Abrahamic religions have the taboo about the pigs, because they used to be sacred. So nobody could touch a pig, Just like nobody can kill a cow in the Vedic tradition. The definition of cow is someone that cannot be killed, should never be killed. And the deers are more specific for the northern Europe, because the presence of the deer was more prevalent there, and there was a species of deer that were very big and very dangerous. So the dangerous animals that are not usually aggressive unnecessarily were considered sacred, especially if they had the horns or the tusks, in the case of the bull. So lots of symbolic stories that are usually called mythology developed around these animals. But basically, what happened in the early tribes, I mean, what are called now the Neolithic tribes of the European and Middle Eastern, around Europe, including North Africa, okay, and part of Iran, Iraq, what is Iran, Iraq today. It was more or less the same culture, more or less. In these cultures, in the very early ancient times, the alpha male, the king, the consort of the mother goddess, needed to be always, had to be always the strongest male in the tribe. The alpha male in the animal groups must always be the strongest. And that is why the males among these groups of animals, like the bulls, the deers, and the boars, they frequently fight each other for the position of the alpha male. So the old alpha male dies in the fight, and he loses the fight, he dies, and the new alpha male is a new king. This is from where the old saying comes: the king is dead, long live the king. You say, what? The king is dead, how can the king live long? Yeah, because the king is not a person, is a position. Okay. It's the idea of the alpha male. In this way, the alpha male was always the strongest male in the tribe. And here we have the origin of the idea of the death and resurrection, or reincarnation. Okay. Now, the concept of reincarnation was normal in ancient cultures. It was only challenged and, in fact, prohibited, outlawed, and persecuted starting from 500 of the present era by the Christians, and specifically by the politicized Christianity introduced by the Roman Empire. Before that, the concept of reincarnation was applied to so many levels. Not only in the individual level, meaning that when we die, then after some time we take a new birth, but also in the reincarnation, death, and rebirth of God. So we have the Christian idea that Jesus died and then he rose again, came back to life. Okay. This is confirmed by the concept, this symbolic archetypal concept of the sun. The sun, the grains, the plants, they die and then they take birth again. They reappear again. The sun dies every evening, every night, and then rises again in the morning. Sun seems to die and then is reborn, not only every day but every year. So we have what in in Hinduism we call the 6 months of the Devayana and the 6 months of the Pitrayan. it's the path of the gods and the path of the Pitris. Because the universe moves. Okay, so from the winter solstice, the sun is gradually born again and grows stronger. Then from the summer solstice, the sun is becoming weaker and then eventually dies. This is seen especially in Europe, which is on a higher, more northern position. So the difference between the 6 months of the light and 6 months of darkness is more evident. If you go to the pole, the North Pole, for example, they literally have 6 months of light and 6 months of darkness. During the 6 months from the summer, from the winter solstice to the summer solstice, the sun never sets. So you have 24 hours of light. And in the same way, in the 6 dark months, you never see the sun. It's always night. Now, from North Pole to the Mediterranean level, that is called it's northern hemisphere, and it's depending on the latitude, the days are longer than the nights, and then the nights are longer than the days. Are you following until now?
Yeah.
Everything is clear. Any question? Okay. You still there?
Yeah, it's like too much of.
I think you close your microphone.
Hello. Am I audible better or
Not so much, a little more, but not so much.
I don't know, maybe some headphone issue.
Yeah, try,
Yeah,
try.
but
Okay.
there is like too much of new information to
Yeah,
digest.
that's why I stopped, because I want to make sure that
Yeah.
everything is clear.
Yeah,
It,
it's clear in that
uh,
sense, but yeah, too much of like new knowledge. I have not
too much
heard of this
knowledge.
before. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, but we can see the seeds of Christianity, for example.
Mm-hmm.
With the idea of, Jesus that dies and resurrects again, and, with
Yeah.
the cycles and everything. And for example, also rituals, for example, the communion. The communion in Christianity is something that if you actually read what the Christian theology is explaining, and the Christian ritual is saying, that's horrible, because it's when you go to mass and you get the communion, the priest is saying, this is the body and the blood of Jesus. Eat it. Eat the body of Jesus and drink the blood of Jesus. Like, what? you know, this comes from the ancient tradition of the Rex Nemorensis, the king for a day, that comes from the more ancient tradition of the alpha male fight, the duel, the clash between males to establish who is the alpha male for the next year, until the next year there will be more clashes. We can see that with bulls, we can see that with deer, and we can see that with boars. Once a year, when the young males become adults, they naturally challenge the old alpha male. That we also seen, for example, with the wolves and with the other tribes, animal tribes. So anyway, any question? No.
No.
No questions. Okay, so we continue. Then
Yeah.
okay. Another big factor that the mainstream academic history does not know about is that there have been theories like the Indo-European theories. Okay, now the Aryan invasion theory, with the idea of the original Indo-European tribe called the Aryans, has been established in the academic narrative, even in India, by the colonial system, the colonial regime, because the colonial regime needed to establish a superiority of a race that had the duty to civilize the rest of the world. You heard about Rudyard Kipling?
No.
Kipling was the one who wrote the Book of the Jungle.
Okay.
You heard about the Book of the Jungle, Mowgli?
Yeah, Jungle
You
Book.
saw the film, probably.
Yes, yes,
You saw the
yeah.
movie, okay.
In my childhood, yes.
Yeah, okay. This book was written by one Rudyard Kipling, who was a British person who was born in Mumbai from British parents. So he was born in India, but he was a colonial British, and he's famous for having repeated the idea of the white man's burden. You know, you know what this concept? Did you hear this concept?
No.
The white man's burden in the colonial mentality was the duty, the burden, the task, the difficult task that the original civilization of the Indo-Europeans, the Aryans, that were were said to have invaded India in around 1500 BCE, So because they brought civilization to India, they said, because the Aryans brought the civilization to India 3,500 years before, then the Aryans still needed to bring civilization to India. And the idea of the Aryans, developed by the French, the German, and the British, which were the biggest colonial powers in those days, was of these blonde people, nomadic people from the Caucasus region, which allegedly invaded India and defeated, slaughtered or chased, enslaved or chased the original Dravidian peoples who fled away to South India. And this is so very relevant to the the present, still present ideas in Indian culture, and especially in Indian politics. This is a big divide between North India and South India, because the British colonial regime told Indians that North Indian Aryans, they were the enemies of the South Indian Dravidians. They had chased them away from the north and forced them to take shelter in the south. And still they kept oppressing the Dravidians, and they kept them as slaves, and the black Shudras and everything, while the Aryans were very white complexion, fair complexion, blonde hair, green eyes. So it is still very relevant. This point is still very relevant because, just look, how many people in India, how the Indian culture, even today, is still obsessed by the fair and lovely, fair and handsome, and the white complexion, fair complexion, in shadi, marriage, in TV advertisement, commercial advertisements, in movie roles, in so many ways. The darker you are, still people think that you are a worse person. You are more primitive, more uncivilized, morally questionable. So you see, it's still very relevant today, but we need to understand where it started. If we want to overcome these delusional ideas, the very dangerous, disastrous ideas, we need to actually understand where they're coming from. We need to find the roots. Okay, so what I was saying is that we need to understand that these Indo-European migrations were not from the Caucasus into India. They were from India towards outside India, especially towards the west. Who were these people who migrated away from India and into the west? The Hindu tradition explains that there were many people, many groups, who did not accept to follow the basic principles of the Vedic culture. They were not killed or persecuted or anything, but they had to, have their own settlements where they could have their own rules. They could eat whatever animal they wanted. They could never take a bath. They, worship. Even the Rakshasas, Yakshas, whatever they wanted, they could do. The Vedic system is extremely tolerant. And even Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he says, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan, Pitrin Yanti Pitri Vrataha. Bhuteja Yanti Bhuteja, whatever you want to worship, it's okay, just do it a little bit aside, especially if you don't want to follow the basic principles of Dharma and Vidya. So lots of people decided just to, do their own, have their own place. So gradually they moved to the west, because in the west there was a lot of lands, a lot of place, where they could do whatever they wanted. And we have also one instance, for example, you probably remember Parashuram, Bhargava.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Parasuram, at some point he got tired of so many kings that were openly, aggressively against the Vedic culture, the basic principles of Dharma and Vidya. So actually he kicked them out. He kicked them out of India, and it is said, I'm still trying to find the quote because I remember I read it, I don't remember where. But it says that many of these kshatriyas, rebellious kshatriyas who didn't want to follow the Vedic basic principles of Dharma and Vidya, they fled west, where they took shelter in the tribes of wolves and bears. The bears like Jambavan?
Yes.
Yeah. The bear tribes were not actually animals, but they believed themselves to be bears. You heard the term totem? No.
Mm,
No.
no.
Totem is in some ancient cultures, even in Native American cultures, okay, especially. A tribe chooses one symbolic animal spirit, and they consider themselves the descendants of that animal spirit. You have heard maybe of werewolves, the story of werewolves.
Like, I don't know exactly, some like American movies
Exactly,
I've
exactly,
seen. That is the
exactly,
idea I have.
exactly. So the werewolves are, were extremely famous and popular in ancient Europe. Okay. But in very ancient times, they were a tribe that chose the wolf as their animal spirit, which we call totem. Okay. So what these people were doing, they were, especially on some festival, some celebration, some specific days, especially on Purnima, full moon day, okay, full moon night, they dress themselves with wolf skins, and they probably also drank or ate some stuff, and they got into this identification with wolves. So they were running around, believing themselves to be wolves, or at least the children of the wolves. We find this idea all over the ancient history of Europe, and even in the Middle Ages, and still today it still sticks in Hollywood. Like you see in these American films of the werewolves. But in ancient times, these wolf tribes were very very ferocious warriors. So they had a purpose in their people. There was a kind of like priesthood, warrior priests, and this is extremely interesting because it became such an important part of culture. And similar to the werewolves were the berserker. Berserker is a word that has, still became a part of the English language from the Saxon, the ancient Norse and Saxon word, that relates to the similar tradition of men who were dressing themselves, wearing the skins of bears. And those were the bear tribes of which Jambavan was the king. You know, Jambavan of the Ramayana story. You know, this explains why Krishna married Jambavati. Jambavati was a normal woman, was not an animal. And the Jambavan is the title that was given to the king of the chief of the bear tradition, bear tribe. You are following, huh?
Yes.
Okay, good. Any question?
No.
No. Okay. Do you want to stop here and we continue next time?
Yeah, maybe from
Because
where we
this,
started, where we reached, yeah, I need to
yeah,
link everything.
exactly. This is a big meal to digest.
Hmm.
Lots of stuff to digest. But I can tell you, this is all this is very important uh,
Mm-hmm.
in order to understand better both the Hindu tradition, the Hindu stories, and the Western traditions, and
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
development of the other religions, especially the development of Christianity. Now, I think that just to round up this part, these groups of people who left India to go and settle in the West happened in many migration waves. And one of these migration waves started the civilization in Mesopotamia, in Sumer. Did you hear about Sumer?
No. Mesopotamia, I've heard,
Yeah,
but.
Mesopotamia you heard. Mesopotamia
Mm-hmm.
is a word that comes from Greek, ancient Greek, because the Greeks were the first to start writing down stories. That started to happen after Alexander the Great failed to conquer India. We'll talk about this next time. But in the
Okay.
meantime, yeah, if you want, you can, if you have time, you can go and check, verify, because all this information is totally verifiable.
Mm-hmm.
Is totally public, you know. So it's not my personal opinion, fantasy, and whatever. It's totally, official. It is there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you so much for your patience and support, participation.
Thank you for your precious time.
And if you want, you can write down some, if you have any questions or whatever, you can write them down and we can expand next time. Okay. Jai.
Okay.
Jai Jagannath,
Jai.
Radhe Radhe.
Jai Jagannath. Radhe Radhe.